Excellencies, fellow laureates, ladies and gentlemen, honorable members of Parliament, friends. It is an honor for me to accept this award, not just on behalf of my family, but for all the Marshallese people. I have served the global community as a nuclear witness, urging the fulfillment of justice because I know with my own experience the devastating impacts of nuclear weapons and why the world must work meaningfully towards their elimination. Political challenges in the elimination of nuclear weapons are just that, challenges. Barriers and issues which can and must be overcome by ethical, political will. But such challenges must not be mere excuses for inaction. Decades after the Non-Proliferation Treaty, decades after the world experienced heightened threats of the Cold War, and decades after conclusion of devastating nuclear testing in the Marshall Islands, I might be branded by some as a radical for my impassioned conviction against the use, testing, or possession of nuclear weapons. But this is not radical. It is only logical. How can it be radical to suggest that the very legal commitment already undertaken to end nuclear weapons must be fulfilled? And this plea to the world is not only on behalf of my country, but also myself. I am a personal witness. The ways that so few others know, I have seen with my very own eyes such devastation and know with conviction that nuclear weapons must never again be visited upon humanity. This is not just an issue of treaty commitments or of international law, though it is that. And it's not just an issue of ethics or morality, though it is that too. But this is an issue of common sense. How could any one common person walking down the street ever permit the possession and use of such weapons? For the Marshallese and for myself, we know better, and we have reason to know better. Between 1946 and 1958, the United States conducted 67 large-scale nuclear tests in the Marshall Islands. That is the equivalent of 1.6 Hiroshima shots every day for 12 years. Every day for 12 years. These nuclear tests were conducted during the Marshall Islands' time as a United Nations Trust Territory, and many of these actions were taken despite specific Marshallese objections under UN Trusteeship Resolutions 1082 and 1493, adopted in 1954 and 1956. These resolutions remain the only specific instances in which the United States, or the United Nations, has ever explicitly authorized the use of nuclear weapons. These tests are not historical incidents, but created a pattern of human rights violations which persist to this day. During testing, our population was the subject of medical surveillance to measure the impact of fallout under a program in which American scientists stated of the Marshallese subjects, quote, "They are more like us than mice." Despite some measure of effort, land remains unfit for resettlement. We cannot eat traditional food, and some communities remain nuclear nomads in a culture where in ways that translate very poorly into English. Land is identity. The decades that followed testing showed an ever-shifting scientific understanding. Disease and death and resettlement halted after data showed continued exposure. Agreements to compensate were forged, but only partially met. And all of the dollars in the world do not truly make up for this great burden. The highest point of land in the low-lying atolls is the ruined dome, a cracking concrete crater of nuclear waste slowly leaking into the lagoon, for which any struggling nation has no capacity, but as apparently we have inherited. And all of this is somehow rationalized in historical documents which have only realized limited release or haven't been released at all, which is a thick black marker indicating redacted information due to alleged national security concerns. Nuclear testing is very much a contemporary issue, and the bilateral disputes speak for themselves. The resolution is key to our closure and our future. But the Marshallese have another reason to persist now, decades later, with the very same message given to the United Nations in the 1954 petition. We know, in ways very few others do, why nuclear weapons must be eliminated. We may be poor, we may be brown, we may be from remote Pacific islands that many struggle to find on the map, but we should not have been ignored 6 decades ago any more than we should be ignored today. Nuclear weapons are a senseless threat to essential survival, and there are basic human and ethical norms, not to mention long-standing treaties, which compel those who possess them to pursue and achieve their elimination. This is the subject of the legal action by my country at the International Court of Justice today, and also in the United States. And this is the vocal lesson of the Marshallese people, that the world must know that the humanitarian consequences could never, never justify this evil weapon. There is no human justification for allowing such risks to persist. I would now like to ask a question I asked at the United Nations in April. How many in this room have personally witnessed a nuclear weapons detonation? I have. As a young boy at Laureate Atoll in the Northern Marshalls. When I was 9 years old, I remember well the 1954 Bravo shot at Bikini Atoll, the largest detonation the world had ever seen. 1,000 times the power of the Hiroshima shot. It was in the morning, and I was fishing with my grandfather. He was throwing nets for scats that congregate along the beaches early in the morning in our small village. When all of a sudden, there was a silent, bright flash, and then a force, the shock wave. Everything turned red. I like to say that it was as if we were standing under a bowl, a glass bowl, and someone poured blood over it. The ocean, the fish, the sky, my grandfather's net, everything turned red. And we were 200 miles away from ground zero. That memory can never be erased. And one of many from the Marshallese which must inform and underpin global political will on nuclear disarmament. After my journey here in Stockholm and Geneva, I will arrive in Paris to help lead very challenging climate negotiations. where the world is trying to define a long-term treaty which will underpin national action from all. But what kind of agreement will that be? The Marshall Islands is a low-lying nation with an average height of little more than 2 meters above sea level. Atolls open so narrow that one can stand on the lagoon side and look clearly across to the ocean side where waves break. The world is well off track to deliver safe levels of ambition, and we must carve out a roadmap and commitment to do so. More to not stop until global missions are at levels which assure our survival, because it cannot and will not be that the Marshallese will ever again bear such global burdens. I want to thank most especially my wife and best friend, Rosalie, and our 3 daughters, Doreen, Dolores, and Sally Ann, for always standing by my side and supporting me, even when the odds were overwhelming. My dad, Joe, my brothers and sisters, and the numerous people who have made it possible for me to be recognized and honored this evening, I wish to express to you my deepest gratitude and kamolo. I want to pay special recognition to the paramount head of the Kabua clan, traditional leaders of the Marshalls, Jabara Kabua, his brother Iroj Mike and sister Lerot Seagull, with whose blessing and authority I wear the bungi, a mark of the highest level of traditional authority in my homeland. I also want to thank the Right Livelihood Award, their supporters, their board, and everyone who decided, and for their courage to grant this award and for facilitating my presence here today. For me, the work to address the plight of all affected peoples continues with renewed determination. And there is indeed convergence between nuclear justice and climate change security. We owe it to the nuclear victims and their nuclear survivors, and most importantly, we owe it to the future generations of our planet, our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. Yahweh, and may God bless you all. Thank you.